Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm Keith Downey, your host, and very thrilled to speak with our next guest. He's the president of the Evangelization and Media Ministry, Forte Catholic. He's a highly regarded speaker, worship leader, and podcaster. He's also the editor of the Bible in a Year podcast and Catechism in a Year podcast. Taylor Schroll, good morning, and welcome to the show, Taylor.
Hey, Keith, how are you, man?
Oh, I am doing so much better now that you're on with us. But good morning. We're glad to see you here.
You are giving me way too credit. I've told you multiple times I didn't work on Bible in the Year, only Catechism in the Year.
Okay.
The one that I worked on was only the #1 podcast in the world for 5 days, not a full month. So you're just giving me way too much credit, man.
All right. Well, since I'm curious about that, how does one become the editor of the Catechism in a Year podcast? You just bump into Father Mike Schmitz and lay down some CCC?
Essentially, I just get an email and I respond, sure, here I am, Lord Ascension Press. I come to do your will.
That's amazing. Well, Taylor, something that I've noticed, and I'm sure a lot of other adults, Catholic adults out there, is that after confirmation, there's really nothing for adults as far as formation goes. It's just kind of like, all right, good luck, best of luck to you, see you later, which is a big problem considering, we've seen how many Catholics don't believe in the true presence. So with that said, what do you think are the primary reasons for adult faith formation and why it's so lacking after confirmation?
Yeah, I've worked for years in youth ministry. That's my background. That's what I've been doing for most of my adult life. And, we have like youth group, right? Like youth ministry where, sometimes you have like the direct sacramental prep, the 2 years before confirmation or the year before First Communion. We do all this work to prepare people. And then we're just like, hey, you're 18 now. Good luck. Bye. Figure it out for yourself. I guess the only way you can do it is through listening to Catechism in the Year and listening to GRN. That's the only formation we can have. So I think it's strange. It's a strange thing that like there's not a ton for people like you and me, right? So yeah, I don't know why, but here at our parish, we're trying to change that a little bit.
Yeah, and we talked a little about that via email and direct message, but maybe can you share some specific examples of successful adult formation programs you might have encountered or even heard of?
Yeah, sure. So at our parish, about 2-3 years ago, we got a new pastor, and he was familiar with this organization that's not specifically Catholic, but works with Catholics called Alpha. Have you heard of Alpha?
I have heard of Alpha, yeah.
So essentially, we started doing Alpha, and it is like the basic introduction to God and faith. It's not like specific to Catholics, like, Episcopalians can do it, Catholics can do it, non-denominationals can do it. And it's just like the basics of like, is there a God? If there is, what should we do about it? And who's this son that he had 2,000 years ago, right? Like so it's 10 weeks, but it looks like youth group. You get together, you have a meal, people can come and ask questions. And it's like the people on team are told not to just like, don't beat people over the head with the catechism whenever they come in. It's like, they're like, I'm not even sure if God's real. And they're like, well, actually it says in Catechism 644. Shut up. Stop it. Right. So, come have conversations about faith. There's a video that plays that is this like introduction to the basics of faith. And then, you have a small group discussion about it, which is essentially what youth group is, but it's for people who are 18 to 95, whoever can, wheelchair themselves into the room. And then, so we started doing that. We started seeing incredible fruit from that in our parish, primarily first from people who are in our pews every weekend, and have been for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, where, the program is built more for people who haven't experienced God, but there are so many people in our pews that have been catechized, but hadn't been evangelized, right? Like they know the truths of the faith. They know what transubstantiation is, but they've never really prayed and talked to Jesus, right? So that was the first step. And then our second step was a little bit more of a Catholic introduction, but it's your show. I'll leave the floor to you.
No,
for
no, I
what
mean, that's
you
great. I
guys
mean,
think.
I have actually, I actually, in a previous parish that we were attending had Alpha, and you're absolutely right. Like, the age range is incredible, and you really get to know the community as you come together. And while, like you said, it's like a very generic Christianized series. There has to be some sort of Catholic element that's added, and that's what they did. And it was really fruitful, I thought, as far as bringing people together. But yeah, you're listening to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, talking with Taylor Schroll about faith formation for adults and why it's so lacking. Taylor, how can parishes better support adults in their spiritual journey post confirmation, aside from, say, Alpha?
Yeah, sure. So at our parish, we recognized that like the fruit that Alpha was bearing in people's lives, but we were like, okay, people have been either evangelized for the first time or like the new evangelization, right? That Pope John Paul II talked about, of like people like you and me, 30s, 40s, even people all the way up in their 60s and 70s, of like, okay, it's time to kind of reinvigorate our faith, right? So we were like, well, let's start with Alpha, 10-week series, and then let's do something Catholic. So like that's the introductions to the basics of Christianity. Let's do that. Let's do the introductions to Catholicism. So I told my pastors, like, I'll do it, right? Everybody's like, who wants to help with Alpha? And they were like, it's easy to help. You just answer questions and sit there and have a great time and be friendly. And then my pastor was like, hey, who wants to lead the Catholic version? And I was like, please let me do it, right? So we did it. It's a 10-week session that looks very similar. We have a meal. We're at a parishioner's house. We gather together, eat a meal, and then our sessions are like 30-minute talks from me and one of my friends who have been in ministry for years. She has a full grad degree. She didn't drop out like I did because we were having a baby, but that's a whole nother thing. But it's essentially like the Catholic top 10. Like, what are the so we have a night on divine revelation. We have a night on the sacraments. We have a night on prayer. We have a night on the mission of the church and so those are just 4 of the 10, but we're like, hey, of the catechism, what's the top 10 things? Let's try to deliver that. And then for the same thing, we do Q&A and have some small groups. And what we've really found is that, like people listening to the radio is a great way to learn. People listening to a podcast is a great way to learn. People going to Bible study is a great way to learn, but there's no pastoral nature to it, right? Like as good as you are on the radio, you can't hear. I've done radio before. The only person you can hear right now is me. You can't hear your audience, right? And so they're listening to you and they're learning, but there's nobody really like leading and guiding and pastoring, right? So being able to do that, we've seen incredible fruit of people who have been in our pews for, like I mentioned, like 30, 40 years, but haven't been to confession 30, 40 years. And they go simply because we teach them for 30 minutes. And then we ask them like, hey, you should probably go to confession. And we have had hundreds of years of people not going to confession just wiped away just because somebody asked. So just our parish is completely being transformed over the last 3 years with the simplest of things, with Alpha. And then we're calling this course the Foundations course, like the Catholic Foundations. And we've just seen people like come alive in their faith after just being like, we're doing this just because we were told to when we were 8, and that was 65 years ago. So.
Wow. So let's say there's someone out there listening right now that might see this gap in formation at their parish, but there isn't anything in place yet. What would you say can be the best step forward in having something in place for them?
Yeah, the worst part about that question is if you bring it up, Father's going to be like, all right, what are you going to do about it? So it's going to be you, right? And I think with something like Alpha, it's plug and play, man. You say you connect with them and be like, hey, we would like to do this. And they're like, okay, we'll send a team to get you started, right? And it's real simple. And then when it comes to something more like Foundations, where it's like, it's a simple process if you have one or maybe even 2 people who you feel confident and the pastor feels confident can teach the faith in a way that is engaging to people and also not heretical, right? So just it's really simple, man. We gather people together. We tell them to bring our little tradition is salad. We have a salad every time, and it's like a super salad where it's just like, hey, Everybody bring their own salad topping. We'll eat it. It'll be really nice. One person will give a talk for 30 minutes, and then we'll have small group. It's simple, right? It's just let's gather people together. So my suggestion is you should do it.
That's right. If you're feeling called to bring it up to your pastor, then it's probably on your heart to actually be part of this mission of bringing faith formation to your parish. That's a great suggestion there, Taylor. So with as we have a couple minutes left, any lasting message you'd like to leave our listeners as they part up, with their day?
Yeah, I think just the biggest thing, whether you have something at your parish or not, or whether you have it at your parish or not, and even if you don't want to go through this whole ordeal of starting something, really it's just getting adults together to share their faith, talk about their faith, and you can literally do anything when it comes to the content. Like if you don't have somebody that you think could speak, look, you get your family together, you get 3 families from the parish together, you bring everybody over to your house or rotate houses. Listen to some Ascension Presents thing, or listen. There's so much content. Figure it out. Listen to it. Talk about it, and you'll just be amazed at how much easier it is to live out this faith that is pretty difficult to do all on your own.
Wow, amazing, and it's keeping it simple. And I think that's kind of been the whole theme of this week so far is simplicity. Whether it's simplicity with God, simplicity in our lives by just listening and not talking so much. Wow. Can't thank you enough, Taylor. Now, we can obviously find you at Forte Catholic, but where else can we find you?
Yeah, the biggest thing that we do is our YouTube channel and our podcast. So just search Forte Catholic, Forte Catholic, or wherever you listen to podcasts or on our YouTube channel, and you'll find our entire Foundations course, which we recorded for you, along with the podcast and everything. That we've had a very fine radio host from GRN on the show a couple times, so you might be able to
I
find
don't know
them
who you're
too.
Talking about. Awesome. No, that was great. Thank you so much, Taylor, for joining us this morning. And wow, this is the end of Morning Joy. I can't even believe it. Always goes by so fast. But we can continue the conversation on our after show Clubhouse. So it's kind of an exclusive way to interact with us post show. So you just need to search Morning Joy Radio on YouTube. We recommend YouTube. It's got a fantastic community there where you can chit chat with fellow morning joyers. I guess that's what we're calling them. I don't know. I'm not sure. But if this is us parting ways, though, maybe you're going to Mass or you're going to be listening to the Holy Mass, please pray for us. We'll be praying for you. But yes, if this is us parting ways, we'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning on Morning Joy, where truth matters. Until then, God bless and make it a joyful day. We'll see ya.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.